So the Kenobi episodes came out today. It was a 2 episode premiere, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts on it. I'll be using clips from the trailers because I don't want to get claimed, even though this video will get claimed. I want to use fair use. I'll only use clips when I really need to emphasize a point. But yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, just want to give a big spoiler warning, obviously, because I'm going to talk about the content of the show. Please go watch it. I do really recommend it. I think it's pretty good. But yeah, so we start off with a quick little recap of the prequels, and I think that it was really well done. It basically just shows you everything that you need to know up to this point. So if someone was, for some reason, new to Star Wars and starting off with this show, which I don't know why you would do that, but if you're like a kid, then you'd be able to understand what was going on. And then we get a scene from Order 66, which will be interesting to see how all the versions of Order 66 videos start to change up as we go throughout the years. And so after the Order 66 scene ends with the younglings running through the temple and the Jedi that was trying to protect them ending up dying, they transition to 10 years later with Obi-Wan being on Tatooine. Now, they don't start off with Obi-Wan. If you remember from the trailer, there's a shot of the Grand Inquisitor getting off of the ship and walking through the streets of Mos Eisley. And that's pretty much what it starts with. And they go around looking for a Jedi. And at one point, Reva, who's a pretty important character, and she's probably going to be pretty much the main villain until Vader shows up, decides to throw a knife at somebody. And Nari, who's another Jedi, he's not super important, but he decides to stop it with the Force and hold his hand there. Okay, so that's the first problem, right? That's the first problem of the entire show. Okay, why did you're a Jedi? Okay, why didn't you just push it? All right, or pull it towards you so that it looks like, or try to make it look like it didn't get pushed from your side of the room. Like, you're a Jedi, and this guy's pretty old. He looks like he's in his late 20s, right? And this is set 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, so he's probably 18 at the end of the Clone Wars. So he's 5 years into his training as a Padawan. He should know things like this. Now, maybe his master just kind of sucked, and he just wasn't trained right. But yeah, just wanted to get that off my chest. Okay, and then we get to Obi-Wan, who's working now as a meat cutter. Wikipedia says he's a meat packer. He doesn't really pack meat. I mean, he steals meat, which is understandable given how little he's paid. And in fact, you can see one of his co-workers getting their pay halved for literally no reason. It's just the guy just felt like doing it. And then we see Obi-Wan buy a toy for Luke, drop it off at his house. Nari comes to find Obi-Wan, and this comes to another interesting scene that I personally didn't have too much of a problem with. Now, Nari talks to Obi-Wan and is like, hey, we need to fight. We need to get back at these Sith for taking the galaxy. And obviously he's not saying get back, but we have to win. And then you hear the lines from the trailer, we lost. Which, yeah, and it's clear that Obi-Wan is really cynical, and he points at Nari's lightsaber, who he's holding it in a weird way, but whatever. And he goes, if you want my advice, take that out into the desert and bury it, live a normal life. Which, honestly, is pretty good advice. And I understand why Obi-Wan's so cynical. I mean, he saw a guy that was fighting for the light side his whole life, right? And he's known him for years. Over 13 years at this point. And then he saw him turn into this evil monster. And obviously his morale is going to be low. And he's suffered under the rule of the Sith for over 10 years. So people are acting like, oh, he's supposed to be like the same Jedi he was in Revenge of the Sith, where he was just kind of, laughing, joking, and not as downtrodden as he was before. Like, I don't know why people expected that. I mean, it's completely nonsensical. It's something I like to call Luke Skywalker syndrome, where people just can't accept, or no, Aang syndrome, which is seen in Luke Skywalker. I called it Aang syndrome earlier today, and I was like, oh, it's a good idea, and then I just messed it up there. But anyway, Aang syndrome, where people have this idea of what they want a character to be later on in their life, and it just doesn't come to pass. Now, with Aang and Luke, I don't like how they ended up. I think that it could have been done a lot better, but it is what it is at the end of the day. What can you really do? That's just my views on it, and I feel like this is another case of Aang syndrome, or Luke Skywalker syndrome. You can call it what you would like. So then we shift over to Leia, who is trying to avoid a public appearance and ends up getting taken from the woods where she's running around, and she has to be brought back so that she can meet with her cousin. She has a really tense conversation with her cousin, and she ends up getting forced to apologize. We're going to come back to that later. But Obi-Wan, so he finishes his job, and it's pretty much the same scene as the first time we saw him. He steals the meat, he goes, he punches his time card, gets paid, he gets on the transport, goes back home, gets his whatever that animal is called. I have no clue what it is. But anyway, Owen comes up to him, throws a toy at his feet, and is like, hey, we don't need you, stay away from Luke. And after that, we see Leia go into the forest, and the last time she got taken out of the forest, we saw the head of some guy watching her, right? And then we see that guy in the forest waiting for her. Boy, there's a lot of problems with this scene. So she's standing there, right? And she sees these three guys come up, and then she starts to back away. And then she runs into the woods. And doesn't turn around and go back inside. Like, what was the thought process? Like, what are you doing? You could have, and given what we see later, when she's running, barely running. She's 3 feet tall. She can't run that fast. She's a 10-year-old girl, and there's two men chasing after her, clearly not running as fast as they can. And it looks like she's about to get away. That's the craziest part. It genuinely looks like Leia is about to escape. And she's using all these shortcuts and different routes to get away from them. And I think they were trying to illustrate how savvy she was, which is what they should have done to even justify the fact that there was a chase scene. Have her back up a step and then duck behind a tree or something, and then they're like, oh, go get her. It would have still been ridiculous and weird that the chase scene lasted more than 2 seconds, but it would have been a little bit better. But eventually they do catch her, which is good, because I thought that she was going to get away, genuinely. It seemed like she was going to be able to escape. So after that, Bail Organa and Beha Organa? I know I'm saying her name wrong. It's the first time we see her on screen. Happens to call Obi-Wan, because that's their only contact, because Ferris Olin doesn't exist in this universe. But whatever, you get what you get, I guess. Anyway, they call Obi-Wan and ask him for his help, and he says, hey, I'm not the man I used to be, which makes sense. He hasn't gone on a mission in 10 years. If you were to give up what you did for 10 years right now, if I were to, let's say I play basketball, right? I play in the NBA and then I just leave for 10 years, I'm not going to be the same man I once was at basketball. I mean, look at George Foreman for an example, right? He left boxing for 10 years, and obviously he was able to come back and rise above and regain his title, but it took time. He just didn't come back and was immediately the best heavyweight. It took time. He had to refamiliarize himself with the sport. But anyway, Bail Organa comes to Tatooine, which is insane because, like, how long did it take for him to, like, it takes weeks for a person to get from Alderaan to Tatooine, and we know that from A New Hope. Like, what's going on? Like, how long has Leia been captured? I mean, obviously, we find out later that the only reason she has been captured is because Reva is trying to draw in Kenobi. But this personal visit from Bail Organa convinces Obi-Wan to go dig up his lightsaber, and he sets out to find Leia. And that wraps up the episode. Overall, it was a pretty good episode. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing Order 66. I mean, I know I was pretty critical of it, but I really enjoyed the confrontation between Owen and Reva. I thought it was really harrowing. Obviously, I know that Owen's not going to die, but still, like, just to feel that fear of the town and, like, wonder what's going to happen. Like, it was just insane. And to see the fifth brother save Owen and that eventually be the downfall of the Empire, even though if Owen had died there, I mean, things might not have unfolded as they did. I mean, I don't know, maybe Luke, like, goes after Vader too early and something happens. I don't know, but anyway, it was a pretty good episode. I really enjoyed it. It was great to see Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan. He knocked it out of the park. He was the best part of it. I did not expect to see young Leia. I didn't know what the main conflict of this was going to be, and I thought that it was going to be chasing down, like, Leia's kidnappers, but it's not, and we're going to get into the second episode now. So it turns out that planet that we saw that I was theorizing might be Nar Shaddaa. It's basically like a canon equivalent, as far as I can tell. It's called Dayu, and when he first gets there, he's approached by this dealer who offers him death sticks and a bunch of other, Star Wars spices. But the one that did stand out to me was glitter stem, and because of the reason it stood out so much was because of the fact that it was pretty pivotal in Han Solo when Legends was still canon and not called Legends. Back when the Han Solo trilogy was Han Solo's backstory, basically that's what Han was carrying when he dumped out his spices to escape from the Imperials. And also Jabba was using that same spice when he was called by Han, when Han told him, hey, I dropped off your spice. But after talking to a dealer who gives him some sort of spice, I don't know what it is, but it does become important later. Obi-Wan is taken to a Jedi called Haja Estri, who at first I just thought was a Jedi, and then he was like, I thought he was like a Imperial agent that was like tracking down people that were like trying to leave and being like, oh, this person might be force sensitive, and collecting a fee. No, he was just getting people off, but he was doing it in like a scummy way. He was like taking their money. It was like a single mom and her kid, and it was just a bunch of silly stuff. Anyway, Haja tells Obi-Wan where Leia is, and Leia goes to rescue her. He gets there, and is ambushed, and he takes a couple hits, which again makes sense. He hasn't been fighting like he was like back in. If this happened like in the Clone Wars or like right after Revenge of the Sith, I'd be like, that's ridiculous. Why is he taking hits then? But it makes sense. Like, again, you're not going to be as good as you once were. Like, after having such a long time out of the game, you're just not going to be as good. But anyway, he gets trapped in a room, held at gunpoint. He's like, he gets his lightsaber taken from him, which I'm sure will be a meme at some point. And he uses a short little opportunity, drop the spice, put up his gas mask. Instantly, all the guys in there are pretty much floating. He goes and rescues Leia, takes her out, and then the Grand Inquisitor and Reva start working against each other. And if you remember from the trailer, there was a picture of Obi-Wan that was circulating from the trailer. You see it, like a picture of Obi-Wan back in Revenge of the Sith, and she puts out a bounty for him, and pretty much the entire city is after him. And it gets to the point where there are two bounty hunters shooting at Obi-Wan, and he looks kind of overwhelmed. And in between this time, right between the bounty being given and these two bounty hunters shooting at him, two important things happen that I kind of skipped over, so I'm going to talk about them now. So, first off, Haja gave Obi-Wan coordinates to a cargo bay that he could get on a ship to go to like Mazapu or something, some new planet. It'll be interesting to see that in episode 3 next week. And he also said, hey, I'm going to stick back and I'm going to hold off Reva for you. Now, obviously that goes horrible for him because he's just a guy with a blaster and he just gets did in completely. He has his mind probed by Reva and she instantly knows where he's going. Also, when Leia sees the picture of Obi-Wan floating around, she's like, oh, you must be the real kidnapper. Oh, I gotta get away from you. They kidnapped me to get me away from you. And then she runs away. Now, this is where you've been out of the game for 10 years kinda goes away, because you're still a Jedi Master, okay? 10 years still. Like, how is she getting away from you? Like, I understand, like, you don't want to use the Force because they'll sense you. That I can kind of, reconcile in my brain, but, like, run after her. He's just kind of pushing, he's, like, nudging people aside. Like, push people out of the way. Like, getting Leia is more important than pushing a couple of people out of the way. Like, this is the future of Alderaan right here. This is one of your closest friend's daughter who's running away, running to be stolen. And eventually Leia runs up onto the roof and she's running away, and Reva sees them from like a couple blocks over and she's like parkouring over to them. It's an alright scene. I like what she's doing. It looks pretty smooth and everything. And so everything comes together. It's not told like that in the story. It's the Haja thing. It's the Leia thing, then the Haja thing, then the bounty hunters are shooting at him. But eventually, Obi-Wan takes care of the bounty hunters, and Leia decides to jump off of the roof. She's trying to jump from one roof to the other, and she just falls. She grabs onto a cable, and Obi-Wan reaches out to her with the Force, obviously, and he can't get her, so she falls, right? But then he reaches down with the Force, and he starts to strain. And this is something I didn't like, okay? Because Obi-Wan's always been, like, a really harmonious guy. So, like, it would have been nice to see him, like, sort of calm down and sort of slide into that oneness that made his Sarisu so good. Especially in Legends, like, the reason he was able to defeat Grievous is because he had a wall of defense, and he would just slip into this quasi-oneness with the Force, and his blade would be guided by the Force. Another thing that's pretty well established is that you can't strain. In fact, Inquisitor Valorum, who I'm about to draw more parallels with, was straining too when he went to grab his lightsaber, and he ended up falling down a plasma duct, the same thing that Maul fell down in the end of The Phantom Menace. And you're pretty much told, even Ferris says, like, hey, even Padawans learn, when you use the Force, you don't strain. Obi-Wan's not a really straining character. If he's straining, he's probably losing. I mean, look at when he first got kidnapped by Maul and Savage. Like, he's straining there, and he gets beat up because of it. Because he's not in that calm, cool, collected, hey, I'm General Kenobi type of state. But anyway, she lands fine, and then, like, Obi-Wan is off the top of the building in, like, 2 seconds. I wish they had shown him, like, jumping down, because I'm sure that's what he did. But, like, it's a small quibble, honestly. So then, they go up to the cargo port, and Reva follows them there because of the probing of Hodge's mind. And so I was looking at the wiki story synopsis just to make sure I didn't miss anything, and she says, the wiki says that she's talking to Obi-Wan through the Force, because Obi-Wan sends Leia onto the ship and is like, hey, I'll be right behind you, don't worry, okay? And then he's standing in there with his lightsaber. I thought they were about to duel. I was like, oh, well, I guess this is the end of Reva, And she was like, Anakin's alive. She told him Anakin's alive. Now, this is something that people die for, okay? If you know this, you will die. If you know this and you don't die, you are either Obi-Wan, who ends up dying anyway, or the Emperor, alright? Or later on, Luke, and then Leia, and a bunch of other people. But at first, it's such a closely guarded secret, right? There's so few people that know. In fact, it's such a big reveal when it, like, Last of the Jedi. I keep making Legends references, but I feel like it's done so much better. If I'm not mistaken, I think Inquisitor Malorum knew about it too. And you know what? If Malorum had lived past his duel with Ferris, Vader probably would have killed him, honestly, just because of he doesn't want that secret to be out. Like, how did she figure this out? Like, this is such a big thing. Like, I remember Ferris Olin, right? One of my favorite characters. Last reference, and I'm done. I'm going to talk about the rest of the episode. I mean, he spends so much time trying to figure out this one secret, investigating Padme's death, doing all these different things. And then Reva just knows? How does Reva know? And yeah, it's over for her, pretty much, as soon as Vader finds out that she knows. And it finds out that she's been spreading it around. And it's just insane to me. And it's crazy that that's how Obi-Wan learns about it. Now, Ewan McGregor obviously acts it very well. He has a really good reaction. And yeah, that's the only positive thing I can say about that reveal. And then the Grand Inquisitor shows up again, and Reva kills the Grand Inquisitor. Now, when I say kills, I use that word very, very lightly, because I highly doubt that she really killed him. Because given what happened in Rebels, I doubt that they would retcon one TV series with another TV series. Somebody said that, oh, that was a different Grand Inquisitor, and they're going to replace him with another Grand Inquisitor. What? Why would they? I mean, that's so ridiculous. I highly doubt that. I highly doubt that. He's not dead. It's ridiculous. And anyway, Leia and Obi-Wan escape to Mapuzo, and yeah, that's pretty much the end. We get a Darth Vader reveal. He's in a back to tank, so he'll be showing up soon. I don't know what episode 3 is going to be like. Now, I had a lot of problems with this, obviously you can tell from what I've been saying. But all in all, like, I enjoyed both of these episodes. Like, especially episode 2 really had me, like, on the edge of my seat. Like, even though, like, obviously Leia's not going to die. But, like, I was happy for Obi-Wan being able to, tap back into the Force, right? And I was getting, like, the vibe that he sort of cut himself off from the Force, and he was like, oh, it's not worth it anymore, I can't do it, like, and so to see him get that triumph was pretty good, and I'm looking forward to him having more of a spirit, because, I mean, even from episode 1, it's been building up more and more and more. Like, I prefer for him to have an actual arc, and, be able to grow and learn from his mistakes with Anakin, which will help him for when he eventually will be teaching Luke. I appreciate that he is down in the dumps, as weird as that sounds. I wouldn't want a jovial Kenobi, like, ooh, the Empire's taken over for 10 years and I don't know what's gonna happen. Yippee-ki, yay. Like, I don't want that, and I doubt anybody else does. I'm genuinely excited for the first lightsaber duel, as weirdly shallow as that sounds. Like, ooh, can't wait until they cross sabers. But I do think that it will be a really fun episode once they finally get into that. Other than that, I'm interested to see what else they do on Alderaan, since this is its first, on-screen appearance in the live action, as far as I'm aware, unless we saw him in the prequels at some point. I don't remember, but I don't want to be like, oh, well, there was a scene on Order 66 when there was a Jedi that got, like, I don't know, there was like a 3-second thing, because I don't remember every one of those. It's been a while since I watched that scene. But yeah, I'm getting kind of rambly, so I'm going to give these episodes a rating, and I'm going to be out of here. So I'll give these a 7 out of 10. That works for me. I've seen a lot of people complaining about Reva. I know I said I was about to leave, but I want to add this. They've been complaining about Reva and basically saying that she's going to be the main character. I've heard that leading up, in the weeks leading up. It doesn't seem like that. It seems like they're going to be focusing on Kenobi and his growth back up into being the Jedi that we see in A New Hope. But I don't know. Nobody's going to be focusing on the show if it switches over to Reva, like, full time, like her struggle with the Empire to grow up and move past her humble beginnings, But yeah, that actually wraps it up. Thank you all for watching. Goodbye.